Welcome back to the channel where we deal with everything photo and video related. Today I have something special for you guys, and we're going to be talking about camera movements and how to use them to tell a compelling story. Filmmakers use different tools to move their cameras. You can use your hands to move your camera, you can use the tripod to move your camera, you can put your camera on a Steadicam and use it to move smoothly. You can use things like small gimbals that actually helps a filmmaker achieve smooth and amazing and robotic-like movements. With all that said, let us dive straight into the different camera movements, how to do them, and what story they actually tell. As ironic as it may sound, we are going to start today's lesson with the static shot. You achieve this by putting your camera on a tripod and locking it in place, not moving the camera at all and letting the action in front of the camera take place. Static shots are used during dialogues most of the time and lets the actor shine in the scene. You can also use a static shot to basically lock the audience on a scene and keeping their focus there. The static shot emphasizes helplessness by not letting the audience look away. Movement number 2 is the pan. The pan is basically a horizontal rotation of the camera on a tripod. You can use the pan shot or the pan movement to actually follow your character moving from one place to another, or you can also use it to reveal something different that is happening in the same place. A slow pan builds the anticipation of what is about to happen next, but a rapid pan heightens the energy of the scene, which are called whip pans. 3. We have the tilt. This is basically a vertical movement of the camera up or down while it still remains in the same pivot. 1. It can be used to show the scale or how vast the scene is, or 2. How dominant a character is. Our next camera movement is the push-in. This camera movement involves pushing or moving the camera forward towards the intended subject. You can use a push-in to actually emphasize a moment. This basically tells the audience that this moment right now is very important and you need to pay attention. Next, we have the pull-out, which is basically the opposite of the push-in. This is where you move the camera away from the subject. Unlike the push-in, which emphasizes the subject, the pull-out de-emphasizes the subject and basically disconnects the audience from that subject or that character. We can also use it to unveil the context of a scene. This camera movement can also be used to convey negative emotions like abandonment or isolation. This movement basically shows how vulnerable a character is, and the audience can actually feel it as well. The next movement, we have the zoom. This is basically when we change the focal length of a lens inward or outward while still recording. The camera may not be moving, but there is a movement created inside the camera. This camera movement can also be used to emphasize an object or a character in a scene. You can also use it to reveal the context of a scene. This camera movement is usually mesmerizing because it is unnatural to our human eyes. Our eyes cannot zoom. Next, we have 2 camera movements paired together, which we call the dolly zoom. This is where you move the camera physically forward or backwards while still zooming in or out at the same time. This creates something filmmakers call the vertigo effect, where the background seems to move away or towards the subject, which is usually something really unnatural and also really mesmerizing. This camera movement can be done 2 ways. 1, by dollying in, that is basically moving the camera physically forward while still zooming out at the same time. This causes the background to grow in size while still maintaining the scale of the subject. The second way to achieve this movement is by dollying out while zooming in. This causes the background to shrink while still looking like it is moving closer to the subject. You can use this camera movement to show internal or external conflict. The next camera movement, we have the camera roll. It's basically rotating the camera on its long axis while maintaining the direction of the lens. Next, we have the tracking shot. This is physically moving the camera following the subject. This camera movement normally follows the exact speed that the subject is moving with. We normally use this camera movement to heighten the audience's curiosity of where is this subject going and what is going to happen when he gets there. It basically builds tension in a scene. But tracking shots only follow or lead a subject. This is a nice segue to our next movement, the tracking shot. This is where the camera moves or follows the subject from the side. Next movement, we have the arc shot. This is basically where the camera moves or arcs or rotates around a subject. This camera movement keeps our eyes centered on the subject in moments where we show heroism. This arc shot shows panic and tension, and that is what the director intended to show. Next, we have the boom shot. This is basically where we move the camera up or down physically. We mainly use this kind of movement to reveal a scene or show how vast or large that scene is. Next, we have the camera shake. This is basically where the camera moves all over the place, producing a documentary style scene. We can use this camera movement to show chaos in a scene, like in this shot. This camera movement is mostly achieved handheld, but in a controlled way. But remember, you can use different camera movements in a similar scene to make the scene a little bit more dynamic and switch up the audience's emotion. So the choice is yours. That brings us to the end of today's video. I appreciate your audience. I appreciate your time. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe. And see you next time.